You don't need $1 million to change your life. You don't need 6 figures in your bank account. The first number that truly changes your psychology, your confidence, and your future is $10,000. And no, it's not because you can suddenly start buying luxury watches or booking first-class flights. It's because something shifts internally. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how different life feels when you're one unexpected bill away from panic? A strange noise in your car, a medical expense, an email from your boss saying, "Can we talk tomorrow?" And suddenly, your mind spirals. That constant background stress is what living without savings feels like. When you don't have margin, you're not building a future. You're defending against disaster. Every decision becomes survival math. Can I afford this? Should I skip that? What if something goes wrong? And here's the dangerous part. When you operate in survival mode long enough, you start thinking small. You stop asking what's possible and start asking what's safe. Ever notice how broke people are forced to think short-term, while financially stable people get to think long-term? That's not mindset. That's margin. Without savings, your brain prioritizes immediate safety. That kills creativity. It kills opportunity. It kills confidence. That's why $10,000 matters. Not $5,000. Not $50,000. $10,000 sits in a unique psychological zone. It's the first time your brain relaxes and says, "Okay, we're not one paycheck away from collapse." There's something powerful about seeing 5 digits in your account. It signals stability. It signals capability. It signals control. And control is the opposite of anxiety. Let's talk about risk. When you have 0 savings, every move feels dangerous. Changing jobs feels reckless. Negotiating salary feels risky. Starting a side hustle feels irresponsible. Because if something fails, you don't have a buffer. So you stay safe, and safe often means stuck. But with $10,000 saved, risk doesn't disappear. It becomes calculated. You walk into interviews differently. You negotiate with less fear. You wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing the first offer out of desperation. Confidence is expensive when you're broke. It's affordable when you're buffered. The person with $10,000 saved often outperforms someone earning twice as much, simply because they're not desperate. And desperation is visible. Employers feel it. Clients sense it. Business partners detect it. Stability changes your posture, financially and psychologically. Now let's talk biology. Financial stress isn't just emotional, it's chemical. When you constantly worry about money, your body produces more cortisol, your primary stress hormone. High cortisol leads to worse sleep, lower focus, shorter patience, and more impulsive decisions. Imagine your car makes a weird noise. With no savings, your heart rate jumps. You're already calculating credit card limits. With $10,000 saved, same noise, different reaction. Annoying. I'll fix it. That shift from panic to inconvenience seems small, but it compounds daily. Money doesn't just sit in your bank account. It sits in your nervous system. When you remove financial panic, you unlock cognitive bandwidth. And cognitive bandwidth is what allows people to plan investments, build businesses, think about retirement, and optimize their income. You cannot think strategically while drowning. Here's something almost nobody talks about: decision fatigue. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you make dozens of tiny financial calculations every day. Generic or name brand, Uber or bus, eat out or cook, renew the subscription or cancel. Every decision burns mental energy. By the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from work, but from constant financial evaluation. When you have $10,000 saved, you're still responsible. You're still thoughtful. But most of those micro-survival decisions disappear. You choose based on preference, not panic. That frees energy. And freed energy improves performance. At work, in relationships, in business. Ever wonder why financially stable people seem calmer? It's not personality. It's insulation. Now here's the real transformation. It's not the money. It's who you become while building it. Saving your first $1,000 feels hard. You resist spending. You say no more often. You feel friction. The second $1,000 is easier. By $5,000, you've built momentum. By $10,000, you no longer see yourself as bad with money. You see yourself as someone who saves. Identity drives behavior. When you identify as a saver, you notice waste. You look for income opportunities. You delay gratification. You think long-term. That's why two people earning the same salary can end up in completely different financial positions. It's not income, it's identity. You don't rise to your income level. You fall to your habits. And high income alone doesn't fix this. We all know someone who earns a lot and still struggles. Nice car, expensive apartment, no savings. Meanwhile, someone making half as much quietly builds $15,000 in the bank. Who's closer to financial independence? The saver. Because wealth isn't built by earning money. It's built by keeping it. Now let's get practical. Most financial disasters that derail people cost less than $10,000. Car repairs, medical emergencies, short periods of unemployment. They usually fall within that range. $10,000 won't solve every problem, but it neutralizes most of them. And when you remove the majority of potential chaos from your life, your behavior changes. Peace of mind is cheaper than people think. But here's the part nobody talks about. $10,000 doesn't just protect you from bad situations. It creates opportunity. A certification that costs $2,000 but increases your salary by $8,000 a year? Now it's possible. Relocating for a better job? Now it's realistic. Starting a small side business? Now it's strategic instead of reckless. When you have zero savings, you can only survive. When you have $10,000, you can participate. And participation is how wealth actually starts. Opportunities don't wait for you to feel ready. They show up when you're prepared. There's also a subtle social advantage. When you're financially stable, you carry yourself differently. You're not avoiding events because you're broke. You're not stressed in conversations about money. You're not silently comparing yourself. That calm energy changes how people perceive you. In interviews, you negotiate better. In business, you walk away from bad deals. In life, you stop accepting less than you deserve. Desperation repels opportunity. Stability attracts it. The goal isn't to look rich, it's to not feel fragile. Now let's make this realistic. You don't need to save $10,000 in 3 months. That's how people burn out. Instead, automate a small amount. Increase it gradually. Focus on consistency, not intensity. Even a few $100s per month gets you there in a few years. And during those years, you're not just building money. You're building discipline. You're building identity. You're building proof that you can follow through. The first $10,000 is the hardest. The second is strategy. Let's be clear. $10,000 won't make you rich. It won't retire you. It won't turn you into a financial genius. But it moves you from fragile to stable. And stability is where intelligent decisions begin. When you're fragile, you react. When you're stable, you plan. When you plan consistently, you grow. Most people chase wealth without building stability. That's why they stay stuck. The most powerful part of saving $10,000 isn't the number itself. It's the identity shift. You stop being someone who hopes nothing goes wrong. You become someone who can handle it if it does. And that quiet confidence, that's the foundation of every wealthy person you admire. They didn't start rich. They started stable. So here's the real question. If you had $10,000 saved right now, how would you move differently? What would you stop tolerating? And what would you finally pursue? If this gave you a new perspective on money, hit subscribe. I break down the psychology behind wealth every week, and I want to know, what's currently stopping you from building your first $10,000? Time, income, discipline, something else? Drop it in the comments.